Today in this video, I'm bringing you, in fact, part 3 of the Stop Overworking series. So today we're talking about delegation and specifically how you need to delegate more in your work. And here's why: not delegating, finding all of those reasons, all of those excuses for not delegating your work, particularly those tasks that are more suitable for a junior level or that you could be using and delegating as a way to also bring those around you up and train them, give them the experience to support you. All of the reasons why you're not doing that are the reasons why you need to start doing more of it now. Now, not delegating is a form of overworking when it's driven by a fear. And I'm going to talk about what those fears are in a moment. So overworking, by way of a reminder, is all of the work that you're doing that is taking longer than it should. So if you look at a particular task or you look at a whole project, you're doing all of it, you're doing every single piece, and there are elements of that that require your expertise, someone of your level, but there are lots of different parts of that that also require could be done by somebody more junior to you, or could be done by somebody else on the team who's at the same level as you. It doesn't matter. The point is the difference between you doing everything by yourself and you doing the critical bits by yourself, some of the bits by yourself, but being able to delegate parts of it to other people. If you're not doing that, then the project is going to take you longer than it should. And here's the problem with that. Here's the problem with overworking, is it means you're going to have that feeling that you're always working. So all that time you spend checking your emails on your phone, always on, right? Whether it's working at the weekends, working on holiday, that sensation, that feeling that all you ever do is work, that is the result of overworking, things taking longer than they should. Also, if you're feeling exhausted, if that's your normal state, that's a product of overworking too. When things take longer than they have to, then you are being more exhausted than you need to be. Another consequence, which is going to make you unhappy, there's the very sad phrase, is you're at risk of burnout. Now, I know this is going to resonate with you because obviously, the more you're working, the more you are constantly on. If you're never delegating, then that's unsustainable. At a certain point, you are just like undermining your own resources, and you're going to get to the point where you're at risk of burnout. The number of clients I have had, and when they come to me, there's that feeling of the way I'm working is unsustainable. And that, a lot of it can be traced back to the overworking habits that at the beginning they're not even aware of. And that's a point I want to make at this stage about delegating. You probably haven't thought about not delegating as a form of overworking. In fact, it's quite possible that you've thought about not delegating as a way of actually doing your job better, because you're making sure that it's of the right standard, you're taking all the precautions, you're not trusting it to someone who might not get it right. So in your mind, you probably think you're doing that in service to your work, right? In service of you, as a way of showing up even better, showing your commitment to the standards. Whereas actually what I'm telling you today, I'm going to show you, is that not delegating is a form of overworking, and it's a way of working that is going to put you at risk of burnout, and it's going to make your career unsustainable if you are doing everything. I love the example of, so as some of you may know, I live in a house full of boys. So I have 4 boys aged, what are they now? 11, 13, 17 and 19, although my 19-year-old's at uni most of the time. But look, if at the weekend, my house gets into such a mess, it becomes a real tip. And if I took on the task of tidying my house and all the boys' bedrooms, did everything myself, then it would take me longer than it should. So much better, isn't it, if I can delegate the tasks of tidying, at least the boys tidying their own rooms, delegate that to them. It's a really simple example, but you've got to think to yourself that every time you choose to do everything yourself, or you don't even consider the possibility of who you could delegate to, who else you could involve in a task, every time you do that, you are making your work take longer than it should. which leads to a very unhappy face, your face. Now, here's what we want instead. We want you to delegate more so that you can get more done in less time. That's the whole point of stopping overworking, is to get more done in less time. There are other advantages, of course, to delegating, and I've touched on those, hinted at those when I've talked about bringing those around you up, giving them the opportunity to learn skills, get experience. That's also a byproduct of delegating more. But essentially for you, and what I want you to really focus on, is the difference it will make to your experience of being a lawyer, of working in this industry, and how much you enjoy this job. So look, if you're getting more done in less time, here's what is available to you. Here's what's waiting for you if you can start really nailing that overworking, just like nipping it in the bud. Better balance. So if work is taking you less long, right, you're getting more done in less time, you are going to have better balance in your work, in your life. And I want to break down what that literally specifically means for you on a day-to-day basis. I think there is a tendency when we talk about balance, it's such a generic word and we throw it about, and there's often we jump to the conclusion that you can't have it when you work in this industry and the hours are so long. And what that does is it creates the impression that you have no control over your work-life balance. It's the nature of the beast. The amount you're understaffed, or it's a very lean business model where there aren't enough staff and there aren't enough lawyers, not enough people available. So we're very quick to dismiss balance as a pipe dream. But I want to bring you back to what's really possible for you if you are willing to follow the processes that I'm teaching you, follow this 5-part series that I'm sharing with you of how to stop overworking. If you can apply these very simple strategies to the small everyday bits in your business, like on a regular basis, you start off by making these tiny changes, right? Making small amounts of progress. But if you continue that, and you don't have to be doing it for very long, in order to start noticing a real difference in how much balance you feel you're getting, how balanced your life and your career feels. So that's what I'm offering you today. And I want you to be thinking about that as the reward, what's waiting for you at the end of the steps I'm going to show you on how to delegate more. So think about what that balance means as I go through. It's going to mean you're going to be so much better at managing your workload. So instead of the stress and the overwhelm, you're going to feel so much more in control of your workload, of your day, because you're getting more done in less time. You're so much more efficient and productive. Better balance also means, of course, more time, more attention, more connection with your family and friends. If you're getting more done in less time, means more time that's available for them. Being able to be present at the dinner table, for example, or on holiday, at least being able to carve out that time, even if you are expected to work on holiday, being able to carve out that time and be really available and connected with your family at the same time. So the opportunity for more connection to friends and family because you're that much more efficient. I don't need to remind you of how dangerous it can be to think, well, I'm going to be here all evening anyway. I've got so much to do. And what happens in your own brain is you then end up slowing down. You're less efficient. So there'll be times when you're still working at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night because you've been inefficient during the day, because you've just assumed the day is a write-off. You've got far too much to do. So you're so much less efficient. And so this, getting more done in less time, is so important to develop as a habit, as a skill, so that all of this is available. So better balance being more control of your workload. I talked about that. More time connection with your family and friends. Exercise, my friend. Now you will see if you follow me on social media, if you follow me anywhere, you'll often see or read a reference to me having worked out, been to the gym, done some exercise. Exercise is so important for you, not just your mental health, your physical health, and your ability to do what is such a demanding, work in such a demanding environment and industry. having time and space and being able to prioritize at the right moment your exercise is so important. And it's going to be so much easier if you get more done in less time. You're creating the space in order to do that. And by the way, can we include fun, please? Don't forget, you actually can and will have more fun as a result of getting more done in less time. It will free you up. That feeling of being more in control means you'll actually have the headspace to be able to enjoy yourself a lot more. I've coached clients who have, in the worst moments, have said to me, I just can't remember what I used to enjoy about this job. I know I used to enjoy it. I know why I signed up to this. And there are things that I used to love about working in this industry or working at this firm. I almost said farm then. I don't know what it's like working on a farm. Maybe it's similar. Who knows? Let me know if you work on a farm and you're watching this. But I have clients who will sort of say, I can't remember, like all the joy has gone out of their experience of work. And this, being able to get more done in less time, the effect that has on your balance, this is key. Because as soon as you feel you're more in control of your time, you're getting more connection with your family, your friends, you're doing more exercise, that sense that you could actually enjoy your work, you get more time to connect with. That was a big part of what I loved about working in this industry, the smart people I used to have the experience of working with. I still work with lots of smart people, of course, because now I coach lawyers, which is brilliant. So I still work with lots of smart people, but I know that's one of the things that typically has drawn you to this job and you used to enjoy about it. And we want to bring more of the fun back. And lots of other ways you have fun too. We want all of that to come back. So delegating more. I hope I've sold you on that. This is what's waiting for you. A smiley face, right? Getting more done in less time and all that comes from that, as opposed to overworking, right? Not delegating, doing everything yourself, and the knock-on effect, the unwanted results of that, which are the always feeling like you're working, the exhaustion, and the risk of burnout. We do not want that. We want to be smiley face over here. So here's how. How do you delegate more? Super simple. One thing you need to do, loosen the reins. Now, I hope you like my lovely horse drawing here. It actually doesn't look too bad on the screen, but up close, well, what can I say? And there was I thinking I really should have done art A level. I really loved doing art when I was at school. So this is my horse. This is you on a horse. And right now you're holding those reins really, really tight. And of course that means you feel more in control of the horse, right? The horse is your work, by the way, in this example. And you're off and you're galloping off and trying to get everything done and going through your day and going through your work, but you're holding on really tight to the reins. And what that means is, yes, you are making progress, but it's costing you so much, like the tension of that, the pressure of that, the stress of that. And also, importantly, the impact that is having on the horse, on the work, you're not allowing your work to gather momentum, right? And you're not allowing the way you work to increase to, what's the word I want to use to explain this? If you think about your ability to get your work done, be efficient, the amount you can get done in less time as the horse, you never really realize its potential. That's what I'm looking for. And if, by the way, I'm not a horsey person, this is just the example, the analogy that made real sense to me when I thought about how I'm going to describe it to you. If you think about a jockey or a trainer or somebody who rides horses and how they're not holding the horse's head back all the time, right? You can see they let the reins go. And what they're doing, the skill is being able to steer, isn't it? To steer, to know when to slow down, know when to give the horse more freedom, right? To realize its potential. And I want you to think about your relationship with your work, your way of working, your productivity like that. If you're holding on too close to the reins, too tight to the reins, which is what you do when you don't delegate, then you can't realize the full potential of how you work. And we're going to change that. So this is just what I want you to be always thinking. I need to loosen the reins, loosen the reins. That's all you need to remember. But I am going to walk you through step by step how you learn to do that. So here's how. Let's look at these steps. Right, let me talk you through this slide. Look, I thought I must be able to do this better. I don't know, what do you think? Do you think that that's a better horse than on the previous page? I'm not sure. You're not going to forget that now, which is why I wanted to include the horse picture. Loosen the reins. That's how you delegate more. Let's look at the steps, walking you through this step by step. The first one is you must plan the delegation. And this is the number one thing that if you've tried delegating and it hasn't worked, this is the number one reason why it hasn't worked, is you're not planning it. It requires planning. If you wait until you just need somebody else to do something, it's already on fire. It's already urgent. You are not creating the right environment for the delegation to succeed. It's not going to create the right environment for the person you're delegating to do their best work for you and deliver what you want. And you're not creating the right environment for yourself as the person who is delegating. I want you to think of every time you delegate, you are also laying the foundations of like more and more, greater and greater efficiency going forward. So every time you delegate, the person you delegate to, they get bigger in terms of their experience and their exposure, and you get bigger as a result of the time you free up that you can spend on something else, but also as someone who can nurture somebody else's skills and also teach them, right? Which comes back to you when it comes to you delegating more. So I want you to consider that this is a process. This step-by-step process I'm showing you now, you do the first time, and it may seem like a time investment initially, but it's a time investment that is going to reap massive rewards for you, not just next week, not just next month, not just later in the year, but throughout your whole career. You only need to learn this once, learn how to do it. The more you do it, the better you will get at it. The better you get at it, the greater it will serve you. So the first step then is to plan. I cannot emphasize this enough. In the first two parts of this live training, I talked about the importance of a timer. And one of the things I really get you focused on in imposter syndrome coaching is we look at your relationship with time and with the clock, because most of you out there feel like you have no control over the time and it's not yours to organize. You know, everything is so unpredictable and you have to react all the time. One of the most valuable things I teach you is how to be in control of your time and how to be responsive instead of reactive. So you're going to have a whole different relationship with time by the time I'm finished with you. So the first step then is to plan. What do you plan? 4 things specifically. Number 1, you first of all plan, and by plan I mean you just allow time for. So you dedicate a certain amount of time based on an intelligent guess of what time you think you'll need. And this has come up previously in the last two live trainings. Is you want to be able to have an intelligent guess of how much time to allocate. So in this case, you are allocating time to actually delegate, right? To instruct the person who you want to delegate to. That just has to be, here's a task, I'd like you to do it, right? It doesn't have to be complicated. You just want to basically allow time. You could say 5 minutes, you could say half an hour. It depends how hard you're going to have to work or look for someone to delegate to. That's for you to evaluate. But allow time to actually do the delegating, the finding of the person and the instructing them to do or asking them to do the work. The second thing to plan for, remember this is just planning, right? Is you plan for the task to be done. Again, this is an intelligent guess of how long the task either will take or how long you've got available of how long it needs to take, when it has to be done by. And that is going to be a conversation quite probably that you have with the person you're delegating to. If they are not going to be in the office in over the next 3 days and it has to be done in 2 days, then obviously that's not going to work in terms of when the task is going to be done. So you need to plan that, right? So first you plan a certain amount of time to do the delegating. Then you plan, right, how many days or how many hours, how much time do we need for the task? Then you add time to check what has been done, check the task, right? So time after the person you've delegated to has given you the work back, time to actually check what they've done. Obviously, really important. You're delegating, you still retain responsibility. So you need time to check. And then finally, this is key. Most of you who try to delegate, you overlook this. You need time to improve what the person has done. And I deliberately wrote here, improve. I did not write redo all over again. When I talked in, I think it was the second, I talked in the second training about excessively checking your work. I really tried to hammer home to you the importance of improving a piece of work within the time available, not writing it all off and starting from scratch and doing it again. All you're doing there is just setting yourself back. You've wasted the delegation time and you're just going back to square one. We don't ever want to do that. You want to focus on improving what the person you delegated to has done, should that be necessary. So what I've described to you here is just the first step is to sit down. You can do it in 5 minutes. Sit down and go, right, this is the scale of this task. Let me think. I need 5 minutes to find a person. I need, the task is going to take 3 hours. Depends what the task is, of course. That's for you to judge. I need to add time to check it. I'm going to spend maybe an hour checking it, half an hour checking it. And then I need to add some time to improve it. And you put that in your calendar, ideally, right, when you're going to do all of that. That's the planning piece, and it is critical to the success of the delegation that you plan all 4 of those elements. Otherwise, you will get stuck. The second step to delegating more when you're embarking on this journey is you give clear instructions. So the first step is the planning, which you can do and have an idea of, right, in your own head, and maybe consulting the person you want to delegate to. The second step is to give clear instructions. Please, I know how busy you are. I know you have high expectations of those who work alongside you or more junior to you. I also know you have all sorts of thoughts in your head about what you were expected to do when you were more junior, and how the person who's more junior to you now should be doing what you had always done, or taking the approach that you took when you were more junior. Is that making sense? I know that your own history and experience getting to whatever level you're at now often comes into play when you are delegating, make certain assumptions, maybe even judgments about the person you're delegating to. I want you to be aware of it. It's not a problem unless you're not aware of it. If you're just aware that that comes into play, you can just be onto yourself if you start making the assumption that they should know what they're doing and they should be able to do it to the standard that you want. Whoever you're delegating to, however brilliant they are not mind readers. So be absolutely clear on what you want them to do. And be clear about 3 things. What the task is, so what to do. How they can be successful at that, right? What's the measure for success? So for example, if you want somebody to draft a draft an agreement, do the first draft of a loan agreement. I'm just thinking back to my finance days, right? It's really helpful if you can say, even allowing for however intelligent the person is or you expect them to be, the key things I'm looking for are, right, this particular clause, this is the most important one in the agreement. Or it doesn't matter how much detail you go into, and you don't want to go into too much. You don't want to be controlling. But what you do want to do is give an indicator of what you consider valuable or important in this task. You most likely have knowledge that they don't have. Or even if you do not assume that they can mind read. It's just a good habit to get into it's a good idea to get into the habit of asking yourself, like, what am I expecting from this task? Like, how will I know this task has been done well? And to communicate that, it's just going to make so much difference and save everybody so much more time. And then finally, please communicate a deadline. Be absolutely specific. Do not say, as I hear people saying, oh, can you do it as soon as possible? I'm not sure if you can see that. ASAP. Do not delegate and ask for something as soon as possible. Have a specific deadline in mind. Here's why that's important. Step 3, you hold them accountable. I had a client who we'd been really working hard on getting him to delegate more, and he finally started doing it. And he was starting to do this plan. That was great. He gave clear instructions. He gave a deadline. It was all going so beautifully. But the deadline came and went. And what did he do? He just got really frustrated, was really annoyed, had lots of thoughts and judgment about the person he delegated to and how it proved all of the things that he had assumed was true, which was he's just hasn't got the right work ethic, and all of this stuff, this whole story that he was telling himself about that particular, it was a junior associate. Now, what he didn't do is go and see the junior associate when the deadline, just as the deadline had passed, or better still, just before the deadline, to check it was on track, right? Or when the deadline passed, to hold that associate accountable. Now, I would even advise like the kind of not waiting until it's like critical deadline, but to be checking in once even before the deadline to make sure someone's on track. The second part of holding someone accountable, by the way, is if they haven't done what you've asked them to do, then a conversation needs to be had, particularly if you are someone more senior and you have delegated to someone more junior, right? And the deadline's there and it's been agreed and they don't meet that deadline, or they don't do that work, or they do the work and it's of such a poor standard. A conversation needs to be had, which brings me to the fourth step, the final step of delegating more. And that is, you must have this conversation where you are giving feedback on the delegation, right? Feedback on the work that they have done, how the communication between you, how it went. They need to be, this part here is the bit where you are priming them, giving them the experience, teaching them about, like, sharing the value of your knowledge and experience to help bring them up. And in doing so, what you're doing is creating, building, nurturing someone who you're going to be able to turn to, rely on, and know can produce at the standard that you require, because you've invested the time in teaching them and giving them feedback. And I say invested the time again, because I know this is a time commitment, and we'll talk about what your brain's going to want to offer you to try and persuade you not to do all of this, or that it doesn't make sense and you don't have time. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. I want to emphasize before I do that the time you spend planning, giving clear instructions, holding them accountable, and then teaching, learning feedback, that is an investment that will keep, you will reap the rewards of over and over again. Don't forget that. So I don't want you to think really short-sighted and be in the moment and think, I don't have time for this. I want you to be thinking more strategically about your career and the investment you are making for it right now. So there you have it. Those 4 steps. You can literally get started with this today. I would start small. So I wouldn't start with a 500-page submission. I don't know how many pages submissions are. I know a lot of you who work in arbitration, for example, you do submissions. But I wouldn't start with a really important court submission, right? I would start with something slightly less urgent, important, and just gradually be delegating more and more. You want to build the muscle, the skill of being good at delegating, of delegating more. And the better you get at it, then the more confidence you will build and the more you'll be able to delegate, confidently going forward. So just 4 steps. Get started. Pick something small. Plan it. Give clear instructions. Hold the person accountable. And give that feedback, my friend. Now, you're going to look at that list and think, okay, I can give that a try. I can see it's worth it, because remember, this is all about me spending less time, getting more done in less time. And there are all those wonderful things waiting for you at the other side of that, right? I talked about better balance and what that would mean for you. But you're going to go out and you're going to start putting that into practice, and you might start planning, and you might start giving instructions. And what's going to happen is So it's going to trigger your imposter syndrome. Maybe even the idea that you take time to plan, make this time investment, that you delegate more, maybe even that as an idea is going to trigger your imposter syndrome. For example, these are just some of the examples that I've heard my clients say and may go through your mind as well. Only I can do this because, right, I'm the only one who knows the deal, or I'm the only one my clients trust, right? That's a common reason I hear for not delegating. It's quicker and easier if I do it myself. Another thing I hear for you to stop delegating, it's like feels much safer if you can just do it yourself, be much quicker, much easier than trying to teach somebody else to do it or get someone else who's less qualified to do it, and then you have to teach them. So this is another thing your brain will offer you, right? Another one is the buck stops with me. This is classic imposter syndrome. It's a fear-driven thought, like I can't delegate it because this is all on me. And if they mess up, then people think I will mess up. I will be held responsible. I'll be found out. That's another thing your brain may tell you, the buck stops with me. And then a fourth thing I hear is, well, they're not good enough, right? The person who, well, I could delegate to them. There are more junior lawyers, but they're not really of the right standard. Their quality of work isn't good enough, right? These are all thoughts that your imposter brain may throw at you. And what I want you to recognize is it comes from the fear of not enough. That either you are not enough, like as a person who can delegate, teach, get the work done, get it done to a well enough standard, do all of this at a high enough level. There's not enoughness is driving the reasons why you are not delegating. Think about that horse again, right? The fear of things being out of your control makes you hold on to those reins really tightly. And what I'm getting you to do is to loosen those reins. I'm not telling you to release the reins completely and let the horse just bolt out the gate and do whatever it wants so you have no control at all. I'm asking you to loosen the reins, and you can tighten them, loosen them, and like direct and steer and allow like the potential of your work, which is the horse, to really grow as you get better and better at it, as you learn how to delegate, and particularly as you train and teach those you are delegating to. Yeah, that's what we want. So we want to get away from this sense of, I can't lose any control. I've got to hold on really tight to the reins. We want to be able to loosen the reins and have more trust and allow more, show more trust in the people that you work with and in your ability to still deliver at the highest level, even when you are delegating to somebody else. You're still in control. And this is the better route, right? So right now, your imposter syndrome will be thinking, oh, these are all the reasons why I'm not delegating. But if you stay with those reasons, where it will take you is back to your old ways, doing everything yourself, right? Doing work taking you longer than it should, feeling like all you ever do is work, being exhausted, at risk of burnout, and an unsustainable way of working. Like, I can't rather overstate the importance of you realizing that if you continue working the way you're working, overworking, and allowing these thoughts to stop you from delegating, you will continue to go back to your old ways of doing everything yourself, and you will continue to get those same results of feeling overwhelmed, risk of burnout, okay? We don't want that. We want to be up here, smiley face. We want you delegating more, because when you delegate more, we know that on the other end of delegating is better balance. Can you see that? It's getting darker in here, so it's harder to see. All right, so I've warned you about your imposter syndrome. It will want to stop you from delegating, from following those steps. Here's what you need to do. Super simple. And I'll be repeating this in every one of these trainings, because in every one of these trainings, we're talking about you taking action, following a strategy that's going to bring you better balance, more recognition, more confidence, help you do your day job with ease, like that wonderful, dream, turning your law career into a dream and experience that's so fulfilling and sustainable for you. And in order to do that, you are going to be stepping out of your comfort zone, we are going to be triggering your imposter syndrome. And every single time we do, I'm going to bring you back to this answer, this solution. And that is to recognize that it's just your imposter syndrome. So when you hesitate about delegating, when you tell yourself it's quicker and easier to do it yourself, right? When you tell yourself, oh, well, that person isn't good enough, the buck stops with me. This is your imposter syndrome. It's your not enoughness. The fear that if you do that, then you're not going to produce anything good enough. You are not going to do it well enough. Something insufficient in you. So recognize that that's what it is. And then remember who you are. Remember who you are. Now, this is very different to reminding yourself of like what you've done. And this tends to be the mistake with imposter syndrome. Oh, well, I worked really hard to get here. Like remembering what I've done. I worked really hard. It's not down to luck. I did it. I deserve this. That doesn't work with imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is about who you are and your relationship with yourself. It's how you think about yourself. This instruction here to remember who you are requires a deep understanding of your ability, or your capability rather, coming from everything about you, your whole journey to how you got here, your reasons and motivation for arriving where you are. Yes, where you are and the stepping stones of accomplishment that have brought you here. But it's so much about the failures that you picked yourself up from. It's about your aspirations for the future. Who you are is so wonderfully, beautifully complex and strong and valuable. And the problem is that most of the time we're showing up at work as less than, as not enough. So the work, when your imposter syndrome has been triggered and you're feeling that you're not enough, is to remember who you are. And in that, you trust that you're enough. That's part of this, right? Remember who you are and trust you're enough. And from there, you then follow imposter syndrome to your goal, meaning you do the thing that is triggering your imposter syndrome. So in this case, the delegating, right? And your imposter syndrome is like, no, I don't want to delegate. I want to keep and do it all to myself. Actually, when that happens, you want to go through these steps and you follow imposter syndrome to your goal. In other words, you delegate. And you do it once, and then you get that feedback, and then you do it again. And you keep doing it for as long as it takes for it to become second nature to you. It's just who you are. Now, all of this, if this sounds daunting, this is the mindset work. And from like inside your own brain, this can seem very challenging, right? Because it can be like, well, who am I? Like if I ask you that question, I say to you, remember who you are. So who are you? And it's amazing. It amazes me of how difficult my clients, most of us, and me before I did this work, like how difficult it is to articulate who you are. I just want to leave that with you. Like, who are you? And how would you answer that question? And then I want to tell you that all you need is the imposter speech. So the imposter speech is like a tool I created. It's actually a series of 5 questions that will get you everything you need in order to go through this process and solve your imposter syndrome, right? So the imposter speech is what I teach you and what we walk through. It's a process we go through in imposter syndrome coaching for lawyers. And what that does is it helps you understand who you are, and it gives you the speech that means you can always remember this whenever you need it. So when you want to delegate, but your imposter syndrome tells you not to because the buck stops with you, you can recognize your imposter syndrome. Remember who you are, right? Get yourself into that state of who you are, not who you're not, and all the things that can go wrong, and that scarcity mindset that stops you acting from the highest, like producing from the highest level. You're able to be who you are, like the most accomplished, the highest potential you, and make decisions, take action from that place. And it's when you're in that energy that you want to follow the imposter syndrome to your goal. In other words, you delegate, right? And you keep delegating. The imposter speech is all you will ever need for that. It is the process for understanding who you are. It's the speech itself for remembering who you are and for trusting that you're enough. And when you do that, when you remember who you are, in these moments when your imposter syndrome has been triggered, here's what happens. You problem solve. You make decisions, you plan, you execute, you deliver, you have the best ideas, you think at the most critical level. You do all of this at the highest level. So it's the highest version of you that takes all of the action when you remember who you are. And as I said, this is not about what you've done or how hard you've worked. It's about you, how unique and extraordinary you are as a result of how unique and extraordinary your journey has been, and unique and extraordinary your brain is, and how it thinks, and the influences you've had on your life, the experiences. All of that is what makes you who you are. And you want to be able to access that in the moments when your imposter syndrome has been triggered. Because all that's really happening there is your brain is just asking you, like, who are we again? Like, it just wants to keep you safe. It feels uncertain. It feels unsure. It feels afraid. And the way you keep yourself, your brain, your imposter syndrome safe, the way you calm it all down, is to step into who you are instead of who you're not, which is how you've been showing up so far. And when this is true, the confidence you build in who you are. So the more you take action, the more decisions you make, the more problems you solve from this like highest level of who you are, the more confidence you will build. And when you do that, here's what the result is. Here's what's waiting for you. I want to remind you, you'll be delegating more and more effectively and better, right? Which means you're going to get more done in less time. And what does that mean? It means you're going to get better balance. And what does better balance mean? Like literally, practically, realistically for you on a day-to-day basis. You just tilt that so you can see. It means a more manageable, you're going to be better at managing your workload. It means connection, more time with your friends and family. It means the exercise that you keep telling yourself you're going to start doing, being fitter, looking after your diet more, getting more fresh air, whatever it is, moving more, so important. It's such a sedentary profession so much of the time. Exercise, you find time for that and you're having more fun. I love this expression that a client of mine shared when we started to really make progress in this area. She could feel she was getting better balance. And she said to me, I feel like I'm winning. Imagine that, imagining starting the day and feeling like you're winning. Like, have you ever felt that in your work? You should be feeling that every day, feeling like you're winning, at least starting the day like that. And sometimes things can happen in the day that can change it. But as a normal state for you going into your day, the way you think about your life, feeling like you're winning that's the holy grail. I think that's amazing. And you're winning, it's not a competition against anybody else. It's like you're winning at your life. I think that's amazing. And what it all amounts to, the real value of this, right? Of having better balance, of doing this amazingly, just from delegating more, what you're building is a career that is more sustainable, it's more fulfilling, and it's so much more enjoyable. And that's what I want for you. I want your experience of being in this amazing profession. I think it's amazing to be a lawyer, to work in this industry. But there are so many pitfalls, so many obstacles, so many challenges. And of course, we have our own brain, especially the parts of our brain like that are triggered, right? When our imposter syndrome are triggered. And that's why we need these tools. That's why we need the imposter speech. That's why it's helpful having this step-by-step process that I have shared with you today. So look, I want to encourage you. I covered a lot in this training today because delegating, there's a lot going on in terms of the reasons why you're not doing it. I wanted to also double down on getting into describing to you what's waiting for you if you're willing to make that investment, the initial investment of following those steps, of learning what to do. Here they are. I'm going to go back. That initial investment of planning, giving clear instructions, holding the person accountable, and then doing the teaching and the feedback at the end. If you're willing to do that, it's not just about being a better leader or bringing other people up better around you. It's not even about the immediate impact of being able to manage the task in front of you a little bit better because you don't have to do everything. It's also about this long-term result of you working in a way that makes your career more sustainable and also really sets you up for any progression you then make from this moment on. The ability to delegate is a skill you'll have your whole career and one which you will need increasingly as you get more senior. All right, that's it from me. I hope you found that really helpful. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is, I will keep turning the sheets until I get to the right page. Not this one. This is a wonderful recap. I'm Caroline Flanagan. I am the Imposter Syndrome coach for lawyers. So if you have listened to this, watch this training, and you can see how delegating more is one of the things you need to work on, you need to be better at. But most importantly, if you just want those results of having better balance, feeling more in control of your workload, better connection with your friends and your family, time to exercise, actually have a bit more fun in your work, all of that's available to you when you stop overworking in this way. And today has been about stopping overworking by delegating more. So come and check me out, carolineflanagan.com/imposter syndrome coaching. You'll be able to see there all about my program for lawyers to help you get better balance, more confidence, more recognition, and do this job with so much more calm and ease. So it's more fulfilling and more sustainable. I'll speak to you in part 4 of the Stop Overworking series. Bye for now.